Hello everyone. Continuing with the second part of orthodontic diagnosis, I'm starting with the discussion of functional examination. Improper functioning of the stomatognathing system can result in various malocclusions. Now, what is stomatognathing system? It is a triad of TMJ, muscles, and teeth. There should be a proper coordination between these three components, that is TMJ, muscles of mastication, and teeth. If there is disturbance in any component of stomatognathing system, it will lead to various small occlusions. Now, what comes under functional examination? First is assessment of postural rest position and interocclusal space. Second is path of closure, assessment of respiration, examination of TMJ, examination of swallowing, examination of speech. First of all, assessment of postural rest position and interocclusal clearance. Now, movements performed by mandible are opening, closing, and lateral, that is side to side movements. During these functions, the muscles which support the mandible they are active. But when mandible is not performing any movement, the muscles which support the mandible they are in a state of minimal tonic contraction, and that state is known as postural rest position of mandible. During this position, there is a gap between maxillary and mandibular teeth, and that gap or space is known as freeway space or interocclusal clearance. Normally, freeway space is about 3 mm in canine region. Now, how to check postural rest position? There are various methods. First is phonetic method. We ask the patient to speak alphabets like M or C or words like Mississippi and ask the patient to relax. By command method, we ask the patient to swallow and relax. Non-command method, just by visual examination, we can check. And combination method, any of the above methods we can combine to check postural rest position of the mandible. Now, how to measure the interocclusal space or freeway space? First is the direct intraoral procedure with the help of vernier caliper. We can calculate. Then direct extraoral procedure. There are special extraoral calipers available. We ask the patient to bite in a habitual occlusion and take the reading. Then ask the patient to make a postural rest position. Take the reading. Subtract the two, then we'll get the freeway space. Then indirect extraoral procedure with the help of radiographs like lateral cephalogram. We take a lateral cephalogram in a postural rest position of the mandible. Then measure the distance between upper and lower teeth. This is an indirect extraoral procedure to check interocclusal clearance or freeway space. Now, what's the clinical significance of this freeway space or postural rest position? In cases of true deep bite, where there is an infraocclusion of posteriors. Posteriors means premolars and molars. Bite opening is done in these cases by extrusion of upper and lower posteriors. If it is a true deep bite, where freeway space is more. In cases of pseudo deep bite, in which freeway space is normal, bite opening is done by intrusion of upper and lower anteriors. Now, evaluation of path of closure. The path of closure is the movement of mandible from rest position to the habitual occlusion. Three paths are there: forward, backward, and lateral. Forward path of closure is seen with edge to edge bite or edge to edge incisor contact. Backward path of closure is seen in Angles class 2 division 2 cases where maxillary incisors they are retroclined. Lateral path of closure is seen in cases where maxillary arch is narrow or there is a cross bite, and we see lateral path of closure in those cases. Assessment of respiration. Humans exhibit three types of breathing, that is nasal, oral, or combination, that is oronasal. Now, how to check whether the patient is having a nasal breathing habit or mouth breathing habit? First is mirror test. Mirror test is done with the help of a double-sided special mirror. One end is placed towards the base of the nose. the other end towards the oral cavity. The end which fogs would indicate where the patient is having patient is a nasal breather or a mouth breather. But if both the ends fog, then the patient is a oronasal breather. Second is cotton test. In this test, a butterfly shaped cotton is placed at the base of the nose. If the cotton flutters, it would indicate that the patient is a nasal breather. But if it doesn't, then the patient is a mouth breather. Third test is water test or water holding test. In this, we ask the patient to hold water for 30 to 40 seconds intraorally. If the patient is able to hold water, then he or she is a nasal breather, and if not, then the patient is a mouth breather. Then there is an observation test. In this, in nasal breather, the external nares dilate during inspiration. In mouth breathers, there is either no change in the external nares or they may constrict during inspiration. So these are the four methods that we can check clinically or that we can perform clinically. Then coming to examination of TMJ, in this patient is examined for symptoms like clicking, crepitus, pain in the masticatory muscles, limitation of jaw movement, hypermobility, and morphological abnormalities. The maximum mouth opening is determined by measuring the distance between maxillary and mandibular incisal edges with the mouth wide open. Normal interincisal distance is 40 to 45 mm. Certain malocclusions. Now we check for speech. Certain malocclusions may cause defects in speech due to interference with movement of tongue and lips. Lisping sound is observed in patients with spacing. Difficulty in production of alphabets like T and D is seen in cases of irregular position, that is crowding. Distortion of alphabets like F and V is seen in cases of skeletal class 3 patients. Distortion of words like th, sh, ch is seen in patients with open bite. Now, evaluation swallowing. As we know, two types of swallowing pattern are there. One is infantile swallow, second is mature or adult swallow. Infantile swallow is seen in infants where no teeth are present. But as the teeth erupts from primary dentition to permanent dentition, the infantile swallow turns into adult or mature swallow. But in some cases, infantile swallow is retained, and that may lead to malocclusion. And persistence of infantile swallow is seen by protrusion of tip of the tongue, contraction of perioral muscles during swallowing, no contact at the molar region during swallowing. These are the features that are observed if the infantile swallow is retained. Now next diagnostic aid is orthodontic study models required in every case. These are the accurate plaster reproduction of the teeth and the surrounding soft tissues. Now what are the uses? The best use is it's a 3D view of the dentition. They enable the study of the occlusion from all the aspects. They enable accurate measurements to be made in a dental arch. That is, they are helpful in model analysis. They help in assessment of treatment progress by the dentist as well as the patient. They help in assessing the nature and severity of malocclusion. They help in motivation of the patient. It makes it possible to simulate treatment procedures on the cast. Like if it is a borderline case, we can extract some teeth on the cast to check whether patient can be treated extraction or non-extraction. And it is useful in transfer of records also. The next diagnostic aid is photographs. Two types of photographs are taken. One is extraoral, second is intraoral. While taking extraoral photographs, the FH plane should be parallel to the floor. The views which are required for extraoral photographs are: first is frontal view at rest, lateral view at rest. At rest means the patient is not smiling. Frontal view at smiling, and oblique view smiling. Oblique view is taken at 45 degrees. The intraoral views which are taken are right lateral, frontal view, left lateral, maxillary occlusal view, and mandibular occlusal view. Radiographic examination, first of all, intraoral radiographs like IOPA, bite wing occlusion. But these radiographs, they are not required in every case. Intraoral periapical radiograph, we advise if the patient is having some pathology with one or two teeth. Bite wing radiographs are required if there is an incidence of proximal caries. Occlusal radiographs, they are required if one or two teeth are impacted and we need to know the location of those impacted teeth. Only then these radiographs are required, but not in every case. OPG is required in every case, as we can see the full dentation in a single X-ray. Condyles are visible. If there is an abnormality in condyle like hypertrophy or hyperplasia, it would be visible. Then any bony defect is visible from OPG. Then coming to lateral cephalogram, again it is required in every case to detect which malocclusion the patient is having, whether it is a skeletal malocclusion or dental malocclusion or a combination of two. Then coming to hand wrist radiograph, this radiograph is advised in patients when we want to know how much growth is remaining in the patient, and it is one of the best tool of skeletal maturity indicator. Then supplemental diagnostic aids like zero radiography. It is similar to Xerox machine, as no film is required for the image, as we get the image directly on the paper. So it's a completely dry, non-chemical process that makes use of the electrostatic process as in Xerox machine. It makes use of an aluminium plate that is coated with a layer of vitreous selenium. Unique feature of it is that it is possible to have both positive and negative image. It exhibits high edge contrast due to phenomena called edge enhancement. Zero radiographic images on paper and is viewed in reflected light. So no film is required while developing. Digigraph. Digigraph is the synthesis of video imaging, computer technology, and sonic digitizing. It is a non-radiographic procedure. It means no radiograph is required. As we do cephalometric analysis on the lateral cephalogram, here it is done directly on the patient. The digigraph enables the clinician to perform non-invasive and non-radiographic cephalometric analysis. The system allows cephalometric analysis evaluation and treatment progress as often as necessary without radiographic exposure. Now, in this technique, first of all, the head is stabilized with the help of a cephalostat. Lateral view of patient's photograph is uploaded on the computer screen. Then this is a sensor. The sensor is placed on the patient's face as at various landmarks which are recorded on the patient's photograph on the computer screen. After placing all the landmarks, cephalometric tracing is done, that is again without the use of any radiograph. So it's a method of doing cephalometric tracing on the patient's photograph and not on the patient's cephalogram. Then coming to MRI, MRI makes use of two fundamental properties of protons, that is spin and small magnetic moment. Advantages are it does not have hazards as it uses non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. Anatomic details are good as in CT scan. Greater tissue characterization is possible. Imaging of blood vessels, blood flow, visualization of thrombus is possible. Tomography. In some situations, superimposition of objects interferes with an observer's ability to clearly discover the objects of interest. In these instances, tomography can be used to visualize a section or slice of the object and thereby eliminate undesirable overlap. Tomography can be conventional or computed. MRI and CT, they are not advised in each and every case but required in special cases where some objects of interest they are not visible, only then they are advised. Coming to occlusiogram, it's a tracing of a photograph or a photocopy of dental arch. Basically it's a method of digitizing the maxillary and mandibular arch on the computer screen. So after digitizing, it is helpful to estimate the occlusal relationship, to estimate arch length and width, to estimate the required tooth material in all three planes of space, to estimate anchorage requirements. Digital subtraction radiography. Subtraction radiography addresses many of the limitations in detection of radiographic changes by decreasing the amount of distracting background information and by allowing the eye to focus on the actual change that has occurred between two images. Technically, this is an image enhancement method that removes the structured noise from the image. Like it is one of the tool that we see in RVG. Minor changes like internal root resorption or some fracture line can be visible with this method. Come to laser holography. Holography is a photographic technique for recording and reconstructing images in such a way that the three-dimensional aspect of an object can be obtained. The recorded image is called a hologram. So it is a method of reconstructing 3D image such as study models. That 3D image is uh, can be stored as a soft copy in the computer. Coming to photocephalmetry, Thomas in 1978 developed photocephalmetry to better visualize soft tissues of the patient. Now, what is there in photocephalmetry? First of all, the lateral cephalogram or lateral radiograph is taken by fixing some metal markers on the patient's face. From the same position, patient's lateral photograph is taken and from the same distance. After that, photograph and lateral cephalogram they are superimposed on each other to relate the soft tissues with the hard tissue of that patient. So a lateral cephalogram is taken. After that, from the same position, lateral photograph is taken. Then after that, after developing lateral cephalogram and photograph, both are superimposed on each other to relate the soft tissue component of the patient on the hard tissue component of the same patient. Then cineradiography, basically radiographic motion picture. This subject is oriented properly and stabilized in a modified cephalostat. An X-ray motion picture is obtained using a cine camera which runs at 240 frames per second. Basically, it is used to visualize the swelling pattern of the patient. The X-ray motion picture is studied using a movie projector. Coming to CBCT, that is cone beam computed tomography, is the recent advancement, and it is specially designed for the dentofacial region. The object to be evaluated is captured as the radiation source falls on a two-dimensional detector. An entire region of interest can be obtained with the single rotation of the X-ray source. The cone beam produces a more focused beam, so less scatter radiation. Here the beam is in a spiral form. Total radiation exposure is approximately 20% of the conventional CTs, nearly equal to a full mouth periapical radiographic exposure, and it is less expensive and smaller, so can fit in dental office. Now coming to conclusion, the problem-oriented approach to diagnosis and treatment planning has been widely advocated in medicine and dentistry as a way to overcome the tendency to concentrate on only one part of the patient's problem. The essence of the problem-oriented approach is the development of comprehensive database of pertinent information so that no problems will be overlooked. From this database, make the list of problems from which the diagnosis is abstracted. So if we summarize, we start with the patient's chief complaint, which is to be kept in consideration and priority. Then we take case history, finding other abnormalities from orthodontic point of view. After taking the case history, we make a problem list. From problem list and with the help of essential diagnostic aids like lateral cephalogram, OPG, study models, photographs, we make a comprehensive diagnosis. from diagnosis, we make treatment objectives in order like which problem to be treated first. Then treatment plan is made whether the patient would be treated with removal appliance therapy or fixed appliance therapy. And after that, we start with the treatment, whatever is best for the patient. So this is all about diagnosis in orthodontics. Thank you.